Well, Eddie, no rest for the wicked in this game. Straight off a plane, straight to New York for a big press conference, which we're going to talk about. Firstly, though, with the city of New York behind you, let's do a bit of reflecting. What a weekend. What a night at the BMO Stadium.
It's a long week. I think we're all feeling it from the team today. Sort of the come down, if you like, off what was just an unbelievable night. You know, I was just talking to people in the hotel reception here who weren't there, and I said the best way to describe it was just like a festival. You know, the atmosphere and the energy of the crowd was so great, not just for the boxing, but for Eminem. And, you know, I've seen a few responses from kind of like the hardcore, like, there was too many fights. You know, it's like, what we're trying to do is just do something completely different. Riyadh season's all about just creating the most memorable events, the biggest cards, and giving the most amount of value for fight fans. And you know, Saturday was one of the best events I've ever been a part of. The build-up for Fight Week. You know, when you look back at the pictures, not just of the night, but Santa Monica Pier and the show there, the Chinese Theatre, LA Live, couldn't have gone any better other than a Madrimov win. But very proud of the show, and I think Riyadh season, Los Angeles was a huge success.
Afterwards, you weren't a very happy man.
Yeah.
Now you've had a bit of time to reflect. Have you watched it back, and has your opinion
I
changed?
haven't watched it back. I probably went a little bit over the top. I mean, I think that, firstly, I thought I heard 116, 112 twice. And when I got in the ring, I honestly felt like we'd won the fight, we'd edged the fight. And I just felt like, as champion, you know, I know it's Terence Crawford and everything, but I had a really good feeling that we were going to get the decision. And when Michael Buffer was reading it out, I was like, I just know it's going to be a split here, you know. And then when obviously he goes through the three scorecards, 116, 112, 115, 113, 116, 112, and I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, you know, it actually weren't even that, they didn't even have it that close. I mean, 115, 113 is a close card, obviously. Thought the other one was 116, 112. And I was just felt a little bit dejected that all of that effort kind of went unnoticed. And I think looking at the reaction online, most people had Terence winning. But, I don't know, 30%, nearly getting to 40, had Madrimov winning or had it a draw or something like that. So when you look at it like that, I just felt that, you know, it was a little bit of a... And then when I saw the scorecards, not just a couple that had been crossed out, but particularly like to give the last 4 rounds to Terence Crawford, the first 4 rounds to Terence Crawford, that was just on one card. You know, I don't know. But I think if I'm thinking about the fight back, it was really the 11th and 12th round that probably hurt us the most. And when it's 115, 113, one round goes the other way, it's a draw. You know, so if we won one of those rounds, 11 or 12, it's a majority draw. And Israil Madrimov's still world champion. So we were that close. And I think looking back, Madrimov could have done a little bit more. You know, it's hard to say that because it's his 11th fight and he's taking on a pound for pound number 1. But I just, like, on 116, 112, I don't see how you can only give Madrimov 4 rounds in that fight. My opinion, yeah, maybe a little bit OTT in the heat of the moment, because 115, 113 is obviously a very close fight. And I think it was a 115, 113 kind of fight. It certainly wasn't a robbery by any means. And you know, maybe more people thought Crawford won than Madrimov. So I didn't. But I also know it was a very, very close fight. And I'm proud of Israel that we're even sitting here on Monday debating who should have got the decision. I think it was an unbelievable effort.
What did you enjoy about working with Terence Crawford? Because it seemed like the pair of you got on pretty
Yeah, I've always liked and admired Crawford. I think, 1, he's a brilliant fighter. 2, I just like the way that he works. I like the way he lives his life. I like his dedication to the sport. And yeah, I think that, you know, you saw the reaction in the stadium when he walked out. You saw how full it was. You know, the guy's profile now is really rising. I think we did a good job for him last week as well. And he's a great fighter, you know, and still a lot of big nights to come. And hopefully Madrimov can get his shot at him again at some point down the line.
Is that realistic for a next option, do you think, at an instant?
Probably not, no. I mean, I think that the fight was good. It wasn't a classic. No. It was, I mean, if you're a fight fan, and you know you're boxing. It was a very, very interesting fight. I mean, the footwork.
A chess match.
Oh yeah, and you saw Shakur saying like, and a lot of the fighters that were watching up close were absorbed by the fight. But if you've had a few drinks and you've just watched Eminem and you want to see a tear up, it wasn't that kind of fight, but still a very good fight. And I think that Madrimov now has the chance to really build on the success in that fight, the profile particularly, the fact that he's gained so many fans through that fight. I mean, I'm one of the most popular men in Uzbekistan after my speech in the ring. Maybe not in Omaha, but you've got to give and take a little, haven't you? So I think his future is incredible. He's 11 fights in. What he's going to gain from that fight, and maybe if he believed in himself a little bit more. It's hard in those kind of fights because when you press the fight and you start to take chances, that's where Terence becomes very dangerous. So you can't just be reckless and jump in. But I felt that, that's why I kept losing my shit during the fight, and particularly like 9, 10, 11, 12, going round to the corner and just saying to him and Joel Diaz, you've got to win these rounds. And I went over after the 10th and I said, you win these 2 rounds, you win this fight. And actually, even with the scorecards, that would have been the case. So Crawford came out, and I know that Crawford said, yeah, we won easy and stuff like that, but I was in Crawford's corner. I was literally sitting with all of his team. They knew how close that fight was, and they sent him out for that 12th round to make sure you win this 12th round, and he did. And he finished like a champion.
In the post-fight press conference, Bomac was asked about boots tennis, and I think Terence was asked as well. But the response from Bomac that I remember was, Jaron Ennis brings nothing to the table. What's your response?
Well, that's the kind of thing you say when you don't want to fight someone. I mean, ultimately, if the money, Crawford's next fight and probably the one after is going to be on Riyadh season, wherever that may be. So when you say he doesn't bring anything to the table, what he brings to the table is one of the best fights in boxing. Crawford against Ennis, for me, tell me a better fight than Crawford-Ennis. You'd really struggle to give me 1, 2, 3, max, better fights than Crawford against Ennis. Bomac knows his boxing. Crawford knows his boxing. They know how tough a fight that is. Ask yourself this. You know what my answer is, but I ask you and people watching. That Terence Crawford that fought on Saturday, who wins? Him or Boots Ennis? It is, for me, one of the great, great fights of boxing. But I understand. Crawford wants Canelo. Crawford wants the biggest names. And Boots is on his way to becoming one of the biggest names in the sport. That fight will happen. But it will happen when the risk and the reward gel. So you give Crawford the money, he'll take that fight. But he's going to want a lot of money because he knows about the risk in the Boots Ennis fight.
Based on what you saw on Saturday night, how does Terence Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez go at 168?
It's a bad fight for Terence Crawford. Even at Madrimov's a very strong, big 154. And look, he still handled him physically. It wasn't like he looked small in there. But it's 168, it's a different ball game. Talking about another 14 pounds plus what Canelo hydrates to. So, and listen, Buddy's that good. He can be in that fight and with his movement, but for me, he does not win that fight. And that's, I think 160s, I think maybe he can get to 160, but, up against the likes of Tim Tszyu, Virgil Ortiz at 54, they're going to be very dangerous fights for Terence Crawford.
Before we talk about Canelo Alvarez and Berlanga, who was your pick of the undercard on the LA card?
I thought Valenzuela was fantastic. I was so pleased for him, and particularly Robert Garcia, and the training team. I thought that was a great fight. I thought Pitbull came back in the fight in 11 and 12, making it quite close, but I still felt that Valenzuela won the fight. Obviously Martin Bakole, and I just knew, it was only really that people were telling me how good Jared Anderson was that I talked myself into it being a 50-50. When that fight was made, I was like, what are you doing taking that fight? Bakole's a top 15 heavyweight, I think top 10 after that performance.
Is he a real problem for the real big boys now, in your opinion?
Yeah, but there's...
Anthony Joshua versus Martin Bacoli right now. Would you be nervous watching that race?
Yeah, cool. I'm nervous if he fought you. But it's like...
You should be.
Yeah, but I think there's a big difference between Jared Anderson and Anthony Joshua. It's actually about 3 or 4 rounds in, I actually said to myself, if AJ fought Jared, because everyone was saying, Jared Anderson against AJ, and I was thinking, it's, with all due respect, that's a mismatch right now. So there's levels, and when Martin Bacoli fights a guy who's in the top 5, that's when he's an underdog in the fight. But he's a right handful. I mean, he's 20 stone, 21 stone, and Anderson, for me, just physically too small to beat a guy like that. To beat a guy like that when you have a massive physical disadvantage, you have to be so tough. You have to have a great chin. You have to be Evander Holyfield against Riddick Bowe, right? Go back and watch those kind of fights. Look at the punishment that Holyfield went through to win those fights, right? And fights against bigger men. And that's what you have to do. You have to be able to stand in there and take punishment, and you have to outbox him. You have to wear him down. You have to try and hurt him. You have to tire him out. But it's difficult because he's a lump. And if you haven't got the strength, and the chin and everything to go through those moments, he's going to beat you. So, I think some great fights for Bacoli. I mean,
I like Zhang.
Zhilei Zhang against Bacoli is a brilliant fight. 2 monsters, Bacoli against Ajit Kabir, Bacoli against Jarrell Miller, who I thought was robbed on Saturday night, But yeah, I was really pleased for Martin, and pleased for Billy Nelson as well. They've been talking about him a long time. And it's difficult because he hasn't really got the profile. So no one really wants to fight him, and everyone knows how good he is.
Were you stirring the pot between Shakur Stevenson and Vasyl Lomachenko?
No, not at all. I actually filmed that. Yeah, because where were you lot? Where was the content team?
Fair, but that's why I think you...
not fair.
That's why I think you might
we got it. How many people we got with cameras?
One person who manages to
and
capture
all of a sudden,
Eddie Hearn.
Someone goes to me, it's all kicking off between Shakur and Lom. I didn't even know. Went over. I'm looking around for our social team. Nowhere to be seen.
Awful camera quality.
So it's awful, wasn't it? I was just like, looked like a fan. I have no idea what it was all about, to be honest with you. So, but great. Look, Shakur wants the smoke. We're hopeful that we can get a deal agreed with him and his team, but we'll see. His Excellency made it clear to me he wants me to try and get him on the Riyadh season cards, and we'll see if we can do that.
Let's talk about why we're here. Canelo Alvarez, your old mate. Now, does Edgar Berlanga know that you've got a picture of Canelo on your... I don't know if it's on your bedside table, but it's in your office.
It's in my office, but when we made this fight, I had to just put it face down.
Was that tough? Was that tough for you?
Yeah, look, I think, firstly, I'm so pleased that Edgar gets the opportunity. When we signed him, a year and a bit ago, I said to him, we will deliver you the Canelo Alvarez fight. Now, when we stopped working for Canelo Alvarez during that spell, all of a sudden, those promises seem to be, have limited potential. But we actually did something that was much harder. We got a deal done with PBC. And that's great for boxing. Keith Connolly, Edgar Berlanga's manager, did a great job as well. And we've delivered the shot of a lifetime for him. We've given him 2 fights. One was headline at MSG, one in Orlando, straight into the Canelo Alvarez fight. I mean, firstly, the opportunity and the money is life-changing. It's, generational. But the opportunity to fight one of the best and the biggest names in the sport is something that he wants so badly. And I feel like he's been disrespected a little bit in the build-up to this fight by people. When you look at the options available to Canelo Alvarez, outside of Benavidez, who's decided to move to 175, who else would you like to see him fight? The other mandatory was William Skull. Edgar Berlanga is the mandatory with the WBA. He's a big puncher. He's a knockout artist. He's undefeated. He's got plenty of personality. He's got a big old set of cojones on him. And he's fighting not just for his people in New York, but also for his people in Puerto Rico. The rivalry is historic, and he will go to war with Canelo Alvarez. He's up against it. Of course he is. But at some point, they take the eye off the ball. they get a little bit older. The injuries start coming through in camp. They start planning ahead to the future. I mean, let's be honest, whatever way you saw last Saturday, Israil Madrimov was that close to beating or retaining his world championship belts. And, you know, don't be surprised to see Berlanga have big success in this fight. You know, if he can find a way to go to war with Canelo Alvarez, at some point this guy's going to break down. And maybe it will be September 14th, but Edgar will give it everything. And in terms of available fights, I love the fight. I think he's going to do really well.
Edgar told me earlier he thinks Canelo might be looking beyond this. They're looking at Crawford. But do you think that could play into his favour if that is the case?
Canelo is the consummate professional. I mean, he's never going to start having days off in the gym and, you know, have a poor camp. But naturally, you might be looking at the next one, or you might think this is a routine defence. And physically as well, these camps, they're hard graft, they're hard work. You know, I think that the Munguia performance was a really good performance. And every time I've spoken to him, not really recently, but a few months back, he wants to be in fights where people come to fight him, right? And he can actually give people great fights. That's why he chose Munguia. I think that's why they chose Berlanga. Berlanga will be there. Berlanga will go to war with Canelo Alvarez. He won't move around the ring. He won't run. He won't try and survive the 12 rounds. Canelo has no interest in that. And I think he liked the Munguia fight. He liked the way that Munguia fights. He likes the way that Berlanga fights as well. And I think the styles will really gel.
Will you be ringside in Vegas in your half and half scarf, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, you know, to see Edgar Berlanga dethrone one of my heroes. But look, I think, you know, we're 1,000,000% Team Berlanga come September the 14th. But, you know, the respect is there for Canelo. But we want to win. You know, we want to win. Edgar will roll the dice with everything he's got. And in top level sport, if he's good enough, he will win. But he's up against one of the best ever. You know, I think the greatest Mexican fighter of all time. And the atmosphere in Vegas for Mexico against Puerto Rico will be something else.
Despite people's opinion on the Canelo-Crawford fight and what you just said about the weight discrepancy and it being a bad fight for Terence Crawford, how big is that fight?
Yeah, it's huge because you've got a pound for pound number one against a pound for pound top five. You know, you got kind of, you know, the face of boxing, if you like, especially in America and Mexico against, you know, another huge star. Listen, it's a great fight, but I just don't think Crawford can win that fight. It's my opinion. But he's brilliant. I mean, he'll try his best, and you can never write him off. But I just think the size is too much. And I think maybe after Saturday, Canelo, because I don't think Canelo's mad on that fight. You know, fighting a guy at 154. You know, say Canelo goes out and stops him. No one really gives him credit for beating Crawford because he's just fought a guy who's come up from lightweight at some point, you know. So, but, as they both said, if the money's right, they'll make the fight.
New date for Jack Catterall, Regis Prograis. Was there ever a danger of this fight being completely cancelled? No,
not really. I mean, firstly, I loved the fight. You know, the response was really good. And I wanted to see it. I want to see it, you know. We were disappointed because we thought we might lose the opportunity to do the first show at the Co-op, which now looks like we keep that intact. And I think it's the right fight for both. I mean, I saw Regis on Saturday. The fight came around quite quick. You know, people have always got conspiracy theories. Oh, was it a real injury? It was a real injury. Both guys wanted to fight on August 24th. But I said to Regis on Saturday, might do you good because it was only 7 or 8 weeks to camp. Might do you good the extra time. He went, no, I was ready. I was going to beat him. Then I beat him. Then I said, all right, calm down, mate. Calm down, Rougarou. So I think it will do Regis good, the extra time in camp. And he'll be right up for this. He has to win this fight.
Johnny Fisher.
Excuse me.
Johnny Fisher remains on that card. The undercard remains the same.
We're going to move some things around.
To Sheffield.
Yeah, possibly. Obviously, Rhiannon Dixon against Terry Harper moved to the Dalton Smith card. We're deciding what we're doing with Johnny Fisher's fight because he's going to fight twice this year. And October 24th obviously makes it quite tight. Plenty of other championship fights to announce and a world championship fight on that card as well. So I think the plan for this week is to roll out both cards for Sheffield, September 28th with Dalton Smith, and also October 26th for Regis against Jack Catterall.
Last couple then, from one Riyadh season card, of course, in America to London. How's AJ?
Great, you know.
Were you on the phone to him yesterday?
No, I spoke to him on text. I was actually, whilst I was watching the Miller fight, I messaged him and said, "Are you watching this?"
Was he?
No, he wasn't. He was asleep. But then he messaged me in the morning, so I caught up on both heavyweight fights. So,
what did he say? Anything in particular?
No, not really. I just think, they're just going to get him pumped. I mean, look, AJ's got a chance to become a 3-time world heavyweight champion. It's historic, and it's a really good fight. Really good fight. So many great heavyweight fights getting made at the moment, and you know, obviously we've got Riyadh season September 21st at Wembley. And then don't forget, just a few weeks later, October 12th, Bivol Beterbiev, Riyadh season. And, you know, the cards getting built at the moment. It's brilliant cards for US fight fans, particularly for UK fight fans. Watch this space. And big nights just keep on coming.
When you sat ringside and you had a look at the crowd in the BMO Stadium and you think about those nights coming up, is this the greatest chapter in your career as a promoter?
I think certainly that we're seeing the biggest cards, the best fights. You're seeing promoters work together, as we've seen. You know, even like it's kind of extent. I feel like we would never have been given the opportunity for for Berlanga to fight Canelo Alvarez on a PBC show without that relationship just starting to develop. And I've worked with Louis de Cubas for a long time, but still, they just would have kept it in house, you know. And now we're able to work closely together, get these cross-promotional fights. And I think it's so good for the sport. And it makes so much sense, you know. And His Excellency loved Saturday. And that is really what we must keep ensuring. That Riyadh season, Saudi Arabia, His Excellency, keep the passion and the energy for the sport. Because it's given us great fights. It's given the fighters better opportunities than ever. It's bringing promoters and people together to work closer within the sport. So a massive run coming up. I mean, you know, we mentioned September 21st at Wembley and Bivol Beterbiev. Don't forget Fury Usyk 2, December 21. That's a massive fight, you know. And we've got some big fights coming ourselves as well in the UK. A couple already locked in, and some others to announce. And I feel like it's a great time for boxing.
Got a little rally cry for your man, Edgar Berlanga.
Yeah, go and make history. This is what you dreamed about as a kid, you know. You've secured the bag, you've secured the opportunity. Now secure the legacy. Secure the legacy and the history for Puerto Rico, because they're going to be out for you. You will be a hero forever on that island.
Eddie, thanks for talking to us.